Welcome to Alienating the Audience, a program for people who don't just love science fiction, they love what it's about. This week, we're going to tackle one of the greatest works of sci-fi of all time, Battlestar Galactica. Grab your most appealing toaster, jump in the Viper, and let's go!
Great. Young, how do you want me to introduce you?
Sex god.
I'm not going to call you sex god.
Okay. Sex titan.
Okay, fine. Sex titan. Do you want me to reference that you're a comedian or anything?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I feel like we knocked that intro out of the park. This is this is Andrew Young. He is a sex titan, and also he is a part of the comedy scene and specifically the improvisation scene in Los Angeles, and a very funny man. And I've known you 20 some odd years. How long have we known? Like 28 years?
I think our friendship can drink and drive at the same time.
Yeah, it shouldn't, but it could.
Yeah.
And one of the boons in our friendship is that you introduced me to Battlestar Galactica.
This is true.
Well, or rather, you know what? I was already familiar with Battlestar, but we watched it together during the brief time I was living in LA. So I saw we'd both already seen the made-for-TV version, and then I'd kind of fallen off, and you'd continued, and then I was living in the tool shed behind your house in Los Angeles, which was, what do you reckon, about 20 square feet?
No, it's 25.
No, I'm delighted to do it while I was there, but it wasn't very big.
I think it was 8 by 9.
It was eight. I was living in a tool shed for 6 months.
Which is more than you deserve.
Behind your house of 8 by 9, and would slink in to watch Battlestar Galactica on your couch, which I think is one of the greatest science fiction pieces of all time. One of the first science fiction series that I am aware of that actually has an ongoing plot arc instead of being procedural. Deep Space Nine does.
And I didn't watch it, but Babylon 5.
Babylon 5, yeah, I've heard that. The Babylon 5, they did plan that out in advance. I guess Battlestar is the first one that I became aware of, and I think was kind of the biggest phenomenon of its time. And it expanded beyond, kind of the groove of Babylon 5, which is a little bit more of a specific crowd.
The style of it was just starkly different from anything you'd seen before in science fiction. Like the handheld camera craziness and the battle simulation was like, oh, we're zooming now. Now we're zooming out. Oh, Viper attack.
Yeah, nailed all of that. And I genuinely enjoyed the storytelling a lot. I thought that today you and I would talk about the meaning of Battlestar Galactica. What are the themes that it explores? What are the
spice?
The spice.
Oh wait, no, that's
no. You're mixing it up again.
No, Arrakis. Oh wait, no, the Force.
Yeah, I ultimately, Young, as always, you're just thinking of Beetlejuice. You're just thinking of those big sandworms, which is very different. So Battlestar Galactica kicks off with, I think, a direct parallel with 9/11 because it's coming out shortly after 9/11, right?
Yes.
So we
two planes run into Caprica.
That's right. And they're pretty much designed by the government. It's an inside job. Laura Roslin's sitting there going, how can I accumulate power?
Yep.
I'm going to blame it on some nonsensical Cylons. They're dealing with 9/11 kind of, in the wake of 9/11, where it's still fresh on everybody's mind. And, they kick it off with the massive attack that has happened.
I mean, essentially, they do the calm before the storm, and then immediately it all goes to shit.
And then they're fleeing for their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just like we did after 9/11.
Just like we did. Remember where we all retreated?
Yeah, it was one big American road trip.
Yeah. Well, but there's that. And then, 3 seasons in, they're on New Caprica. And in a fascinating turn of events, because previously we're seeing it where I think you could make the argument that the Cylons kind of represent, fundamentalist Islamicism or something like that, right? Or it's a there are some parallels there in that there is a theocratic element. It's a non-pluralistic monotheism that's motivating them, and they are very much hell-bent on the annihilation of the humans, right? So you can kind of see the parallels of that with Al-Qaeda going on, of they want to destroy us.
Well, it's also a co-opted religious system. They've co-opted it for the purpose of killing all these people. You find out later in the series that essentially some of the main Cylons have just basically made up what they think their God wants them to do.
So you have the initial catalyst. We've got, the angry monotheistic force pursuing the humans. And then season 3 or so, there's this fascinating role reversal that happens where they form New Caprica and then are occupied. And all of a sudden, and I think this is fascinating in American TV going on at that time, we're now seeing the Battlestar Galactica lens through that of occupied Iraq, because that's going on contemporaneously. And we're now seeing like the humans are now the freedom fighters that are strapping bombs to their chests and blowing themselves up to kill the Cylons who are occupying their planet, which I guess is kind of daring storytelling, in my opinion, and just interesting to do such a pivot in terms of where your sympathies lie.
Well, I hadn't thought of it that way. So now I'm thinking about it in that context. And
I mean, I think at the very least that's floating around the subconscious mind of people in the United States at that time. We're very much in Iraq as that's going on.
That would be what, 2006?
Yeah, 2004 through 2010. So it's, 3 years after 9/11, still fresh in everybody's mind, and very much during Afghanistan and Iraq. And there are issues that they're dealing with that we're dealing with in American history at the same time. Like there's one with Gaius Baltar where they realize that he's been noodling the enemy, and they basically have to have a debate over whether they'll torture him or not to get the necessary information.
Well, and then they put him on trial.
Well, before we get into that, because I think it's a great point, with the torturing Baltar, you remember how they do it?
How do they torture Baltar?
They give him a drug that makes him feel like he's drowning.
Oh, yeah.
So waterboarding.
That's right.
You remember how big of a deal waterboarding was? Like, we didn't know that Dick Cheney was like anally feeding people hummus at that time. So we were really focusing on waterboarding, which was the thing at the moment.
Oh, yeah. And also, at one point, Gaius Baltar ends up saving Laura Roslin's life by using Cylon blood, which, considering the time period, is a direct allusion to stem cell research, which I think is an interesting point.
Yeah, good point. And it's specifically a Cylon baby. It's or a Cylon human hybrid baby, right?
Yeah, so they're using essentially baby Cylon infant blood, which is, was exactly the complaint that was happening during the Bush years.
So they're definitely going through all of that. And then you're right, like they're giving Gaius Baltar a trial, which I think gets into the ethics of Battlestar Galactica, because they do play with several ideas throughout it. Like sort of due process is one of the things that they repeatedly come to, because
they're essentially run. Like at the end of the day, they have a president, but the military is in charge.
Yeah. Well, there's that tension there the whole time, right? Because I think the first.
If they weren't boning, then who knows what would have happened?
Which I think is the lesson from this is always have sexually compatible civilian and military leaders of organizations. And I don't care what gender they are, but they have to be able to bang, and they have to be able to work out their aggression.
And that's how you defeat terrorism.
That's how you defeat terrorism. But yeah, Baltar has that big trial, and they ultimately let him off after he was effectively like everybody. He was on trial for being the head of the Vichy regime.
Yeah.
And no one is disputing this.
Yeah.
But they still give him a trial. They give him an actual trial, and it goes from we're going to shoot him in the back of the head after this kangaroo court to by the end of it where they're like, all right, we have actually, Laura Roslin made a blanket pardon for everybody for any crimes they committed on Caprica. That blanket pardon would include the president of Caprica, and so we got to let him go. And they ultimately decide we have to follow the rule of the law and not make an exception because we want to arbitrarily punish this person who is deserving of it, but we're going to rule under the law.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, not to directly dispute, but I wonder. I mean, it feels so much like actual Vichy France, because like at the end of the day, like Pétain was in the same situations. Like, what would you do? Like, what would you do if you were the president of a country? You'd just been made, you were a great hero, Grand Marshal Pétain. You get made the head of this country.
Pétain had been a war hero in World War I.
Oh, yeah, big war hero. But
he was good at killing Germans.
Really good at killing Germans. And then decided, no, not this time.
But, honestly, though, I get the wrestling, right? So, now I know more about Battlestar Galactica than I do about Pétain or the Vichy regime. And it sounds like you're more balanced on these things than I am. But Baltar is president. So, to a refresher for people, there's a debate within the colonial fleet of do we settle on this crappy planet that is like effectively like the less
M-class, but just
barely. Like
we like Star Trek.
The less balmy parts of Alaska, right? Like it's cold and gray.
It's essentially slate. Everything's made of slate,
right? And do we do this hard Scrabble existence on this crappy planet? But at least we have a sky again. At least we can build houses. Or do we keep looking for mythic Earth? And Gaius Baltar wins the election, even though they try to rig it at one point, which we can get into in a minute. Gaius Baltar wins the election. The referendum on whether or not to settle prevails. They move down there, and within like a week, all of a sudden, whoosh, 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 all the Cylon ships are dropping from the sky, and he immediately surrenders. Because what else could he do?
Yeah.
But then after that, he starts working with them, and I got to say, Baltar's an amazing character. Because Baltar's always 100% Baltar.
Yeah, and but at the same time, he goes through more. I would argue he goes through more bullshit than anyone else in the series. Because essentially, he's the reason the Cylons were able to do what they did in the first place, because he wanted to stoop a blonde.
He wanted to stoop Trisha Helfer.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, but I get it.
Yeah. And he didn't necessarily know he didn't know.
It wasn't that she was going to have sex with him in exchange for killing all of mankind.
Yeah. It was like, I need a little bit of access.
He merely thought he was giving her some proprietary IP that had to do with the defense contracts, right? So he merely thought he was doing some just basic corrupt level graft in exchange for sexual favors. He didn't know he was going to, commit the genocide of his species.
But then he gets away, has to spend years basically pretending he had nothing to do with any of that, and advise people while protecting his own back. I mean, there are a lot of parallels there with like Dr. Smith from Lost in Space, but it's like this, he's like covering his own ass the whole time. Then he becomes president.
He goes from like secret traitor to Steve Jobs, because that's how everybody perceives him. They perceive him as like, oh, you're Gaius Baltar. I've seen you on TV.
He's the automatic person that we go to for science advice.
Yes, yeah.
About whatever.
He's the Dr. Oz.
Of
the colonial fleet.
Dr. Baltar, you seem good. Help us develop a Cylon detector. That didn't pay off.
And then he becomes president. And there is a fascinating arc on that planet, because he's like, I think as I recall, he's like, miserable and drunk the entire time he's doing it. He's not enjoying being a puppet.
As are most presidents, regardless of the situation.
He's not enjoying being a puppet president, but he's working with it. But there is that moment where they're like, this is a list of people that we've decided need to be killed because we believe they're abetting the terrorist organizations that are existing here on Caprica, the human insurgents, right? And they like put a gun to his head, and he's like, okay, and he signs.
Why do the Cylons do it? It was just to fuck with them, right? Don't they like not retcon, but basically Dean Stockwell at some point like, we did all this to fuck with you, because they're trying to kill them for so long, and they're like, no, we'll occupy their planet. Maybe it is like Iraq.
I gotta say, I mean, you and I had this conversation before the series concluded, so many years ago, where we're both watching it. The beginning, there's that wonderful intro of, and they have a plan. And you turned to me and you were like, I don't think they have a plan. And I was like, yeah, I think they had a plan for the pilot.
Yeah.
I think they had and then maybe for season 2. And I think they kept getting greenlit and going, oh, shit, what do we do? Okay, all right, COBOL.
Yeah.
They had to keep, because there were several things that over the course of the series, Kara Thrace declines in importance. Like, they set her up to be incredibly pivotal. And then she kind of not that she ever becomes a background character, but it's not the Kara Thrace
until
show.
She dies.
Yeah. But,
I'm making air quotes on dies.
But it's not the Kara Thrace show, and they kind of set it up like that. And then at the end, they bring it back. But going back to the occupation of New Caprica, like the way it pans out is that there are sort of two competing camps within the Cylon world, right? There's the angry, vindictive atheist that is Dean Stockwell's character, Cobble, right? So
who finds out that mommy and daddy don't love him,
right? And he just wants to drag him through. What he wants to do is he wants to disillusion the elder Cylons of their love of humanity and show them how horrible human beings are, so that when they wake up, they're like, you're right, that was a mistake. We need to double down on the robot side of the family. But then you also have like the Lucy Lawless, Trisha Helfer, monotheistic, God has compelled us to do this spiritualists. And they're the ones where they have a spiritual awakening where they realize that, they've killed all the human beings on 12 different planets, saved the 50,000 who escaped. God now wants us to
bring them into the fold.
Yeah, to reunite with them and be friends with them.
Yeah,
We're doing
go
this out of
convert
love.
the natives.
Yeah, and so that's why they try and integrate with them rather than kill them. And Kabul the whole time is like, just kill him. like Kabul, I think is very interesting in that he at one point they're on a planet. The humans are in the process of trying to find Kobol, and they find like an old planet with a temple on it that's been abandoned for thousands of years and it's about to be obliterated by a supernova. And the Cylon's like, well, we've got to keep pursuing these people. We don't know where they are. And he's like, we're immortal. Like we're all immortal. We've got thousands of years to track these humans down. Like we should quit making stupid decisions and quit treating it like a chess game and just play it like immortal beings. And they're very much, like emotional, and we have to engage them. So
yeah.
One of the things to go back to Islam that I think is a really interesting idea that they come back to in Battlestar Galactica multiple times. And they explore it most directly in Caprica, which I did not like. That's the follow-up series. That's
it bored the heck out of me.
I didn't care for that. That said, that they play around with this several times where it is an ongoing idea in the Battlestar Galactica universe that monotheism is inherently violent and dangerous.
Yes.
And that polytheism is pluralistic. And it makes sense, right? Like if you're the old Roman Empire, you roll into Britain or something and go, all right, what do you worship? Okay, you guys worship a field goddess. That's probably Artemis. Ceres, I guess. Okay, you guys worship Ceres. What do you call her? You call her Bethelhuza? Fine, that's great. We don't care. They you've got like a whole new god we didn't hear about. All right, well, we've crossed the Tiber. I don't know, maybe there's a god over here. We don't know. But it's like the old polytheistic religions could both adapt to other religions in terms of trying to figure out how to slide them into the worldview, or just adding gods.
Granted, they were killing each other for other reasons. And
No, they weren't peaceful, but the religions could coexist, right? Whereas in the Battlestar Galactica universe, and it was a really interesting idea, particularly to play around with, a couple of years after 9/11, where monotheism tends to be a lot more mutually exclusive with other monotheistic faiths.
Well, it has to be, right? Because if I believe in 12 gods, I can only give 1/12 of importance to any of them. If I believe in one God, that God is the most important, and yours is different than mine, so fuck you.
Yes, I think that is on the postage. Yeah, that's the. But it's an interesting concept to play with, and we could go into Hinduism. You get into like Brahma. There's sort of like one underlying super god that sort of everyone's a part of. So you can kind of play around with it, but there is generally monotheistic,
which Christianity incorporated a little bit. At least Catholicism did, and. I mean, you have more experience with this, but I think Orthodoxy in a way too, you would pray to specific saints who had like a purview that they dealt with sometimes.
Yeah, they kind of, the cult of the saints, which is a Catholic term, I'm not using that pejoratively, did kind of step in and fill a lot of those sort of micro polytheistic things in the same way that you don't really have in the maternal aspect of divinity got absorbed into Mary in Christian theology, and you don't really see that as much in Protestantism. But you did kind of have the emotional stuff sort of sculpted into that new worldview.
Protestantism doesn't have time for more than one. It's just, we got stuff to do. We don't dance. We need to fix this barn.
That's also their selling thing. Hey, we don't dance. We got to fix this barn.
That's my sum up of Protestantism.
Yeah. Come on over. Well, the other one that we should loop in here is that the guy behind Battlestar Galactica, at least the 1970-1980s version, is Mormon. And there's at least, I don't see like massive Mormon themes in Battlestar Galactica. I think they're reasonably superficial. But there are a couple,
just like little shout outs.
Yeah, so Kobol, which is the original home of mankind, that eventually they left early on to form the 12 colonies. That's an anagram of Kolob, which
where God is from.
Which in the Pearl of Great Price or the Doctrine and Covenants, I can't remember which one. One of the four Mormon scriptures.
Yep.
They clarify God is from a planet and became a god, as you will if you were a good Mormon, you will become a god of your own planet, and Kolob is the home planet of God. And so there's a tip of the hat from him to that, and the Battlestar Galactica universe.
He goes real tricky and moved 2 letters.
Yeah, it took me a long time to crack that code. Could be the 12 thing as well. Like Mormonism has a lot of references to 12 in it. The 12 tribes, their organizational leadership. There's I can't remember. Quorum of 12, I think.
Quorum of 12, yeah.
And there's like a council of 12. There's in Battlestar they do, instead of doing like the tribes of Israel, they do the 12 like zodiac signs, and then they change Cancer to something else because it doesn't sound.
Well, and I mean that all originates from the apostles.
Yeah.
In Mormon, I mean, I would assume 12 comes.
Well, then it gets into all sorts of stuff, right? Because you've got like sort of New Testament reflection of Old Testament stuff, and there's a lot of like storytelling illusion and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of religious imagery in it.
I was going to say, I think the biggest thing that I felt watching the show in a post 9/11 world was just constant tension and the idea that it can happen at any time. Like every time they jump, they're under constant tension. Mm-hmm. Every time they find out that there's a silent on board threatening something or something's going to blow up, it's like constant tension. And I feel like for a country that had not, we'd had a World Trade Center bombing that didn't work out so well for the bombers. We had the Oklahoma City bombing, but we'd never had anything hit us where it hurt in a way that we're like, oh, we were completely pants down.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it also...
And it could happen again. And we kept being told it could happen again. Security is changing because it can happen again. You got to take your shoes off at the airport because someone can put a fucking shoe bomb.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, but I think that it did change everything too, right? So like I remember when you and I were in middle school, I don't remember if it was a conversation with you. It might well have been because we were lunch companions.
The best ones were.
But I remember this, again, this is us in middle school. And we just watched The Undiscovered Country. And we knew that it was about the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yep.
And our attitude was we won. America won.
Yep.
And everybody's our friend now. Russia's our friend now.
Yep.
And everybody likes
never
us.
to stumble again.
Yeah, we're like history's over. Good job, America. And not for people born after 9/11, that they don't. I don't want to say that they're cynical or that they live in a bad universe or anything, but I don't think they had that moment of really pristine hope that people born in the 80s got to enjoy for a 6-month period.
Well, you think about, and now with COVID-19 is another example of this. You think about what the greatest generation went through with they went to war and they faced a particular problem, but they were able to go do something about it. They were there. They could take a direct action to try to fix the problem, which is go to Europe and shoot people, right?
Go kill Germans.
Yeah, go kill Germans.
Which, for the record, when COVID happened, that was my policy. It was we need to go to Berlin and start shooting these Germans.
Yeah, I know you pitched that.
And nobody was on board for that. But nope. I was supplying solutions.
But you think about the major trauma events in the lives of a child born in the 80s. Vietnam might be an equivalent because they went, but what did they achieve? But for us, it's okay, we have 9/11 and people enlisted and stuff, but they couldn't change things for that. You can't beat terrorism.
It's tactic.
Yeah. And now we're in a situation where we're facing a massive event, but we can't do anything.
There's no COVID army.
Yeah, so
it's mow down. So
it's a sense of, and I think that's kind of the parallel that Battlestar Galactica still has, is just you're helpless.
I think you're absolutely right. The tension is palpable. You're right about that. There's a sense of we are just barely ahead of the forces trying to destroy us. We are at any given time 1 block north of the posse trying to mow us down and kill us, right? There's rife tension. And then the other thing that I think Battlestar Galactica does better than literally any other science fiction I can think of is the concept of we have been infected with a spy. Because they do that so well of we don't know, we know, there are
12. You know of 7 and there are 5
more.
That
makes sense. And numerology. Yeah. But we know at the beginning of the series that Boomer is a Cylon. We know that Tricia Helfer's character is a Cylon, obviously.
We know that random guy they shove out an airlock is a Cylon.
That guy, the very, very spiritual dude that it wants to convert Kara Thrace and wants forces her to marry him, all this stuff.
Yeah.
We know them, right? But there is this like over the course of the series, as it's happening, you don't know who's a Cylon. Like at one point, maybe Adama is.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't know, which is the other reason it's brilliant. They literally don't know that they are Cylons.
Which is also true of 9/11 because we didn't know if we were terrorists.
That's right. Do you
remember that? Do you remember
you and I were busy at work at the Deer Creek High School laboratory checking our blood types to see if we had any terrorism in us.
Yep.
And thank God we didn't, because we would have just shot each other right there if that had been the thing. We would have.
Yep, we proved that we're not.
No, what would have happened, Young, is we both would have gone full Saul Tigh, where we're looking at and I'm like, my God, it turns out I'm a terrorist. Young, you're a terrorist. What do? We do our duty.
God, what are we gonna do?
The ship is under attack. We do our jobs. Report to your stations.
Report to stations?
My name is Saul Tigh. I am an officer in the Colonial Fleet. Whatever else I am, whatever else it means, that's the man I want to be. And if I die today, that's the man I'll be.
And also, I'm going to keep drinking.
I'm going to keep drinking and wearing an eye patch and look suspiciously like John McCain.
Yeah.
Just a spitting image of John McCain. That I got to say, that is the best part of, because there's a mystery element to Battlestar Galactica that you never quite know. And the level of uncertainty that breeds throughout the series is wonderful. They play that up fantastically.
And they predict the value of Ancestry.com, also a Mormon thing, because it's like, oh man, I found out that I'm, part Italian on my mother's side. I never knew that. I guess I'll be more Italian now.
Yeah. One of the things that they deal with is how to, I think ethics comes up a lot in Battlestar Galactica. We talked about that tension between civilian and military government. There is a coup at one point. Tigh just Adama's out for the count. I think it's after he's shot.
Yep.
And Ty's like, we'll do martial law, and then ends up getting flushed
and Rosalind's
out.
like, no.
Yeah. So there's that. Well, we talk about due process. There's what to do with POWs, I think, is an interesting thing in there, where I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy that kidnaps Kara Thrace, the true believer Cylon guy, you know what I'm talking about? He gets thrown out an airlock. So they capture him early on, and they have to think about, this is initially an alien intelligence that is overtly malicious and incredibly cunning, and all of them have blood on their hands of having killed, let's estimate, 20 billion people. So a lot, right? Imagine it would be the equivalent of if a hostile power nuked all of America and 50,000 people escaped and were being hunted by them, how we would think of them. We wouldn't think of them they were on the other side of the Bolivian War, and we were, we were more on the Costa Rica. It would be very, very visceral, and they're having to think about how to do that. And for the most part, Rosalind and Adama come down on the side of civilization, but there are examples of the counterexample, on the Pegasus, they just flat out torture. When they find the Tricia Helfer model on their ship, she's locked in solitary confinement. She's sexually abused.
Yeah, Ensign Rowe is not a very good leader.
She's
Star Trek.
She is not happy about that, and they view it on the Pegasus as this is a toaster that wants to kill you. You do not owe it anything. It's incapable of ethics. It has no soul. You can do whatever you want if it makes you feel good. There's nothing bad to it. Whereas the Battlestar Galactica crew, while they're not nice to them, they're not Norwegian. They do decide we're going to maintain some kind of ethical decorum in dealing with them.
Part of that's, I think, Adama's leadership, but I think it's also the Pegasus doesn't deal with the civilian population, so there's no one to kind of counteract. Well, we're military law. there's an episode. There's the episode of Voyager where that's that small ship. What's the name of that episode? Where they run into another Starfleet ship.
Oh, it's the one where they're sucking the seahorse out of life.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. The seahorse,
the space seahorse.
Yeah.
They could like puree them to get warp
faster warp. Yeah.
It's standard physics.
Standard. Yeah.
Space seahorse, put it in the blender.
Yeah, and that's a ship of like 5 people, but they're all under the chain of command. I guess Voyager's all military people too, but there's enough of them that it kind of like...
Nope, Neelix. He's the one.
Oh, that's right.
There's one civilian.
Kess for a while until she lost it.
Thank God they're both there. The Neelix is there. Otherwise, they would have gone dark.
And they have the Maquis officers.
True.
So they don't have like a nice clean chain of command to slowly corrupt over time. I don't know why I bring that.
I think you make a good point. So like Pegasus is smaller and more tactically adept and more modern than Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica is
an old ship.
Is like the Kelsey Grammer diesel submarine in Down Periscope, right? It's like the old
Yes,
clunker.
Everyone, Down Periscope, the movie that you've definitely seen. With Kelsey Grammer, Rob Schneider.
There's so literally, I guarantee you, some poor person feels like we have maligned his religion and then drug it through Star Trek and then brought up some Kelsey Grammer film. And I apologize to you.
The one guy who saw Down Periscope and it changed their life.
Yeah, but if he makes fun of Kelsey Grammer, so help me, I'm turning this off. But like Battlestar is the old clunker. Pegasus is like the really like tight, modern, dense nuclear submarine. Like it is a precision instrument, and it has, as you point out, has no civilian detritus that's holding it back ethically. Whereas the Battlestar Galactica fleet, it's one very large military vessel. It's like an aircraft carrier surrounded by pontoon boats and Carnival cruise liners. And that society has to have more interactions. And then the fact that other than when Tigh does the martial law, like Laura Roslin is in charge and Adama does acknowledge that. Like presumably Adama could overthrow her if he wants. And Roslin asks him about that. But they do acknowledge they do follow the civilian government.
Well, and there's another... Even in the case, because they have another coup, because they're prisoners, right? At first, they're on a prison ship, and they like take over the prison ship, and they have to decide how to deal with that. And that's ultimately, I think there's an argument between Adama and Roslin. Then I'm like, well, how are we going to deal with these prisoners?
And then they give them clemency.
Yeah,
because basically the prisoners are like, I think they were going to force the prisoners to like get ice off of an asteroid, and the prisoners are like, "Why are we going to do this for you? We're like, living in
we have nothing." Yeah,
and then they basically like, "Look, we're going to just like do this and we'll free you," and they just like, "That's it, you're good." And they go. But they have a coup later on as well, where Tom Zarek.
Well, Gaeta leads a coup.
Gaeta is fascinating in that Gaeta is working for the Vichy regime equivalent, but he's giving sensitive information to the terrorists. He's to the freedom fighters on New Caprica, right? He's very nearly executed for being a collaborator and is only saved by the skin of his teeth. So he's redeemed at the last minute. Tom Zarek, who has been captured and like is almost killed, is sort of like brought back into the fold and then holds a coup. Like has the Council of 12 or whatever their civilian equivalent just has them shot, and then is brought down. Like Adama and Roslin like step in and are like, that's it. But there is a second coup there where they basically are going to have like a junta or a dictatorship or something, but they no longer have the confines of democratic rule of law.
Yeah, but is that at the same period as when Gaeta ultimately tries to overthrow Adama?
Yeah. That's when that happens. Yeah.
Okay.
It's after New Caprica.
Yeah. It's like basically the second to last season, right?
It's pretty late in the game.
And then they airlock Gaeta.
Yeah. Well, they don't know. They shoot him.
Oh, they shoot him in an airlock.
Yeah. And there's a great moment where like Gaeta is looking down and like he's lost his leg, he's lost all of his friends, he's been like drugged through the mud as this traitor, even though he was actively helping the resistance.
Yep.
And now
he can't tell anyone he has a secret boyfriend.
Yeah. And then he I forgot about that. And then he institutes this coup and is going to get shot. And he looks over at Tom Zarek, and Tom Zarek like smiles, gives him a head nod of like, Well, we tried, buddy. It's just very like, man, don't you know?
Yeah. That's a whoopsie.
Yeah, like I was like, this gets good acting on top, or Richard Hatch's part. I'll go back to the POW thing. There's an interesting parallel in American history with German POWs during World War II, where to go back to the idea of how do you treat people that are you're at war with. Now, under normal circumstances, we were bound by the Geneva Convention, which is to say that there are certain legal obligations that we have committed to through treaty with participating countries in that, which to really get into it, the laws of war only apply to nations which have subscribed to the laws of war. Hence, it doesn't apply to terrorists and things like that. That said, though, in World War II, Germany and America are both signatories of the Geneva Convention, which means that we both are subject to its laws. However, towards the end of the war, Nazi Germany just starts shooting American soldiers. They don't want to bother trying to feed them. That's too much of a strain on their resources.
We're very hungry.
And they're going crazy, right? And so at that point, like when they're executing captured defenseless military, they have broken the Geneva Convention, and by doing so have released us from the Geneva Convention. We are no longer bound by American or by international law. Like we are legally free and clear to do whatever we want.
Wait, hold on. So what's the separation line there? If one prisoner of war is mistreated, suddenly,
I don't know exactly, but it's my understanding that it was very apparent that official German policy was shoot captured Americans. Yeah, and when that became apparent, they released them. But to the credit of America, like there's interesting stories you can read where German soldiers would be POW soldiers be stationed in America, and like the town comes out to see them paraded in, and they're going to like scream at them and stuff because they're shooting their kids. And then they see this like parade of like 16-year-olds limping and have like a spot of empathy. And basically like the collective resolution of the country was, it doesn't matter what Germany's doing, we're going to continue to treat these people as we would have during the Geneva Convention, because it's more about who we are than about what they deserve or about what the Nazis deserve. We're gonna accord them a certain level of civilization because we don't want to debase ourselves. And I think that there's a parallel that happens in Battlestar where they have to figure out how do we treat a very existential enemy when we capture them.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, yeah, because the constant debate is what makes us human in that show, right? If a Cylon is not human, then what is?
Yeah. And that's, I think, the other really big theme of Battlestar Galactica is what constitutes humanity.
And ultimately, just nothing. They all end up on the same planet together, get it on with some native people and, skin some buffalo and then make Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, by the end of the series, like, there is no difference whatsoever. Like, you remember the beginning of the series, their spines would light up where they had sex? Remember that? Like, that just that fell away?
Nope.
Like, that was a thing for a while. It was just kind of a cool effect so that you could, like, bring in some sex.
And with no biological basis. It made no sense.
I'd say, I wish my spine lit up when I was orgasming. I think that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I couldn't fake orgasms anymore.
Yeah, you couldn't fake your orgasms, Heaton. The women would always know.
That's true. Yeah, that'd be tough. But
Heaton, did you finish? You didn't light up the room in a bright red.
I'd have to install a clap light and start applauding.
Well, you already applaud yourself when you finish anyway.
I usually yell touchdown.
Start clapping. And then tell my Amazon Echo to play some music, I don't know, Scotland the Brave or something.
Yeah. Congratulate everybody on a job well done.
Yeah, the standard celebratory anthem, Scotland the Brave.
That's just the first thing that popped into my mind.
Yeah, no, I know. But somehow it does feel appropriate for you.
But that isn't interesting because in the taxonomy of Battlestar Galactica, you've got the humans, you've got the Centurions, who are the robot looking guys, right? And then you've got the replicants. I don't know what the term is.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're essentially the same thing as replicants.
Yeah, call them replicants. So that they're and they do have like superior strength.
Do they ever try to? Oh, what would happen if you showed a Cylon a
Voight's hot test or whatever it is, Voight-Comp? Yeah, Voight-Comp.
Yeah.
They'd kill them because they have really good strength.
Oh, that's true.
They can plug into things.
And they figure out what's going on.
There are differences between them biologically. Although apparently it's so slight that you can't even tell it with a blood test.
Yeah, because Baltar can't figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
He's so smart.
But you can't just cut the hand open and see wires and stuff. So,
which I have tried on real people, and let me tell you, it works. You know that they're real.
If they've got, you can confirm that they're real people. So the taxonomy drops off, and they explore. Then ultimately, I think that's the conclusion they arrive at, is that humanity is more about, who you are on the inside, or how you treat people, or something to do with the decisions you make, rather than the innate biological hardware you have of you.
Which is also a parallel to 9/11, because just like in Battlestar, not long after 9/11, we as America decided, I guess we don't care about this thing anymore. Let's stop doing it.
Well, then on that note of not doing it anymore, I think we should discuss some of the problems of Battlestar Galactica.
Other than the one we've already mentioned.
Well, okay, so the big ones, I don't think anybody's a big fan of the last season. There aren't a lot of diehard Battlestar Galactica last season
Well, it feels like
apologists.
Stop and start, we're going to go. And then the introduction of Starbuck as some ghost savior.
Yeah.
It's this never felt earned.
And this is why I don't think they planned this part out, right? So initially, I love the whole Gaius Baltar is having these visions of Trisha Helfer, who's sometimes helping him, sometimes teasing him. And so for the first 3 or 4 seasons, you're thinking, is Gaius, initially, I think they must have put something in his head. He must have an implant in his head that they are using to spy.
Yeah.
Or that there's some subroutine that is talking to him. And then later on, she starts seeing Gaius and her visions.
Yeah, that's right. And then at the end of the series, they're standing there going,
angels.
We did it.
They're angels is the end of it. We decide they're angels in their head. And I'm like, that is just the
They're angels.
biggest.
And Starbuck is also an angel.
Starbuck is an angel.
But doesn't know it.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, that felt like a cop-out to me. That was a very strange way to do it, and it felt like they slapped that together at the very end.
I haven't read anything on this. Maybe you have. Is there some sort of parallel that's trying to explain what on earth that was meant to be connected to? Are they doing any kind of allegory there? Are they just feels like we've undercut Starbucks, so let's give her a thing.
I don't think so. I mean, the impression I get, I haven't read this is all supposition, but the impression I get is that they knew that it worked well to build a mounting sense of ominous mystery, right? And they knew how to jazz the mystery, but they didn't know what the underlying mystery was, is my read on it.
The fundamental lost problem.
Yeah. And so then when they get to the end, they're like, you angels. And I didn't care for that. It really bothered me that Laura Roslin starts out having cancer. She's saved. The cancer comes back, and she's just kind of out for the count the last season. She's such a wonderful, strong character.
Yeah, they just ever so often you go and you see her bald in her ship, and it's like, okay.
Right. And I was
And the dynamic between her and Adama is so good that to just give that up to do what? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love more Dean Stockwell time, but why sacrifice kind of the best relationship in your whole series? Because, I mean, Starbuck's interesting and all, but she's, I don't know, she never really codifies as a character that's oh, we know the purpose of this character, but we know the purpose of their relationship. It's it's the structure that keeps everything else surviving.
Mm-hmm. And has that built-in tension, right? They don't like each other initially.
Yeah.
They're eyeballing each other of she is reluctantly giving him medals to sort of just keep the peace with the military. He is openly flirting with overthrowing, the school teacher, in his words, because she's effectively she's the Secretary of Education, and she's the only one left in the line of succession when all this happens. I think the Laura Roslin Adama dynamic is fantastic, and it is so earned by the time it pays off when he goes off to rescue her because she's been captured by Cylons, and he realizes, oh, it's not that I respect this person. I deeply love this person as a companion, and they've built that, and it doesn't seem like it's in any way like a pivot because they ran out of plot points. It is a natural buildup that pays off very much. So the very end of Battlestar Galactica, where they decide they're going to go to the new Earth, right? They find this. They
find a planet with people on it.
Yeah, with kind of rudimentary hominids they can breed with, and they decide to do that. But they send all of the ships into the sun. And I'm like, nobody wanted to stay on a spaceship?
Yeah, well, what's their argument? Their argument is they have to destroy the ships or people will know that they have the option to leave. So I'm not sure they gave everyone a choice.
Is that how it goes? See, I got the impression it was unanimous. I could be wrong. And I kind of get it in that, like, maybe, imagine COVID lockdown.
Yep.
Now imagine it on either a Carnival cruise ship, or more likely, imagine it on a train. And you're just stuck on a train for 6 years, except when you're on the crappy M-class planet. And now they're like, do you want to stay on the train, or do you want to go to this planet with continents and grass?
See, now we're talking about Snowpiercer heat.
Snowpiercer, yeah. So like, I get like people going like, no, I don't want it, but like, I'm kind of like, no one wanted to land the spaceships.
No one wanted to land it.
Use them for.
Yeah, you had. Why would you really? Okay, would you really get rid of all of your technology? Such that, I mean, as we're led to believe, that you would forget it all and go back to arrowheads and sticks and what have you. I'm not giving up my stuff to go live on some random planet. I'd land the ship, or at the very least, I would transport down, I don't know, forks and knives.
Yeah, I think they take backpacks down with them. You know what's weird, though, is that you could
toilets. I would take toilets down with me.
You could make a case for having multiple species being the nexus point for mankind does parallel our own actual biological history, which is interesting to me. I think that's just a happy coincidence. But like if you are a non-African Homo sapien, you have some percentage of Neanderthal DNA. If you are from Asia, there is a very good chance that you've got Kevinesian DNA. I'm not sure how to say it. So there are different ones. And the other thing that I find interesting
that all comes from one guy named Kevin.
One guy from Kevin. He got around. Or maybe it's Denisovans or something like that. It's like Dennis. It's Denisovans or whatever. There's a moment in evolutionary history, and we're not sure what happened, where we're anatomically modern, our bodies don't change, and all of a sudden we get way smarter. Like about
aliens.
Huh? Yeah. Well, probably not, but that's been theorized before, because we go from like really crummy arrowheads, and then like a century later, we're building axes, and we have no idea what it is. There's some debate as to like maybe we suddenly are able to, we're anatomically modern, but we don't develop language until then, or Gaius Baltar is banging all of the locals, and that they can now talk.
See, but here's the thing, though. Here's what doesn't make sense to me about the timeline that they decide to create. All right. If you and I, and how many people are left at the end of it? It's at least 1 million, right? Or something like that?
It's like 50,000 or so.
I think
by the end of it?
I don't think they add that. They don't double it or anything, do they? Yeah.
Okay. So let's assume that 50,000 people go and go back into Earth's history and breed with the Neanderthals, the Cro-Magnons, or like whatever. At what point, like, yeah, our DNA breeds out, I give, sure. But do all of our kids just forget that, mom and dad, or at least dad, or at least mom, was like able to build fire just real quick because they had a lighter?
I don't know. I mean, so our species is 300,000 years old that we know of. We got upgraded, by the way, because it was when you and I were kids, it was 200,000 years, and then they found like a head in Spain that was 100,000 years older in the last 6 years. So we just gained 100,000 years. It's like finding out your birthday is actually 4 years before you thought it was. Like we gained time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like let's say 100,000 years in, there's a really bad plague in a volcano or something. I can see, I can see getting knocked back sufficiently.
Oh yeah, I suppose if there was an extinction level event that didn't kill everybody, that would make sense.
And we do know that, we were an endangered species at one point. Like we don't know the exact amount, but there's pretty good evidence that humankind at one point got down to like somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 people, while just in Africa. Like it was just kind of around Kenya. Or we think, it's really hard to know, right? Because it's also possible that like the Sudan was a jungle at the time. We don't know that now because it's all sand. Yeah. So it's like we just assume it's there because that's where we find the fossils. And we also know the other thing is true because they conclude the series by finding what they strongly imply, they say is the ancestral eve of mankind. And they strongly imply that it is the hybrid Cylon human child produced by Boomer and her husband, right? But that actually was the case. There is an ancestral Eve that all mankind is descended from, and there is an ancestral Adam. They probably didn't exist at the same time, but there is one male who is the only male whose progeny survived to present day, and there is one female whose progeny are the only progeny that survived to present day. So that did happen, which I think is interesting. Probably not a half robot kid.
No, no, probably not. Do you think that? I would love to ask Ron more.
I invited him.
Oh, you did instead of me?
Yeah, you were definitely the dregs of this.
Yeah, I get it.
Between you and Ron Moore, I would go Ron Moore, Trisha Helfer, you. You were my third choice.
Yeah,
I'm hoping I can get them to just watch Razor with me.
So, series creator, actress on the series, guy who you went to high school with who watched the series.
Yeah, right. You're doing very well.
Yeah, that's a standard step down.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You're a little bronze medal buddy.
Thanks, man.
Anyway, what were you saying before I derailed that?
I would be curious what they intended that message to be, because I don't think it's clear at the end.
You mean like the sentiment of the series of like, this is the thing to learn?
Yeah. I guess like a loose thing would be, we're not that different after all.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds trite, but I guess that is kind of the general thrust of it ultimately is that, the humanity is more than skin deep. It's about you and how you treat people. And then also ultimately love is more powerful and more productive than, existential
more reproductive
fighting. Because that's that happens several times in the series where it's like at the end it's Cobble's the one that dies, and it's sort of coming together. Like the Cylons ultimately team up with the humans, which is a crazy development, but it happens. So yeah, I think that's the final kind of thrust of the program. Although they explore a bunch of things on the way there. I don't feel like the whole thing.
I guess it's the religious following clues to get to that planet and angels and stuff like that is like, what are we trying to say? Because
I would have loved for them to clarify that cosmology a lot earlier.
Yeah, because Trisha Helfer, is it 6? What's it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because it sounds like sex, right? I'm sure that was.
Yeah,
and she's stunning.
That was a very well hidden.
Yeah.
Her whole thing, at what point is she guardian angeling Baltar in a way that's helping them get to this point? It even if you retcon that, it's real hard to be
they're very mischievous, horny angels.
Yeah, I guess she keeps him alive.
Yeah, I think there are a few points where she does seem to be the character does seem to be very loyal to Baltar. The angel does seem to be like playing with him.
She's like a familiar.
Preserving. Yeah, actually more like a familiar.
Yeah. But then the two of them meet at the end. Baltar Angel and Six Angel meet together, and it was like, well, we did it. We did whatever our plan was.
Yeah, to get them together. Well, I think. Actually, you know what? Their plan is this, because there's another theme in this. Is their plan is to break the cycle. Their plan is to break the wheel, right? Because the cycle is that organic life obtains sentience, creates robotic slave labor. Robotic slave labor kills humankind.
Yeah, they say this has happened before, it'll happen again.
Right.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah, and they're presumably referring to the old Earth, not the Earth you and I live on, but the Earth that Saul Tigh and Ellen and all of them lived on, because when Battlestar Galactica finally makes it to Earth, after Adama has promised them that there is in fact a distant 13th tribe, and they, lo and behold, find it, they get there and it's a radioactive wasteland, because they have already gone through 2,000 years prior the exact same thing that the humans in the 12 colonies have gone through. They built up their own Centurion robots, and the Centurion robots rose up and killed them.
Yes, it's exactly the same, eerily similar, no different.
I think the way the chronology works is that human beings all come from Kobol, the 12 tribes of humans, the 12 worlds, yes. Right? Caprica and Cancer, or they don't call it Cancer, Caprica and Pisces and all that stuff, right? They come from Kobol. Yep. There's a 13th tribe.
Yeah, the Paul the Apostle tribe.
The Paul the Apostle tribe. There's a 13th tribe on Kobol of humanoid Cylons. like Saul Tigh and all of them, right? And in the Battlestar Galactica universe, the humans go off to the 12 worlds. The Cylons go, nah, we're doing our own thing. And they go to Earth way in the opposite direction, right? So at some point in human mythology within Battlestar Galactica, the humans forget that this 13th tribe is a group of Cylons because they're humanoid by the time they leave. So that doesn't, basically they've forgotten that they're humanoid Cylons. And they go build their own civilization on Earth that's humanoid Cylons. They become so humanoid that they, while Cylons, cease building each other and begin to reproduce through sexual reproduction. They start cranking out Cylon babies.
Yep.
And about that time, the Centurions rise up and kill them. But 5 years before that happens, Saul Tigh and Ellen and Tori and
all the rest
and the rest, the chief, they see the winds a shifting, and so they rebuild the long forgotten and non-used resurrection technology so that when the nukes go off and kill everybody, they wake up on a spaceship orbiting Earth, and they now have, disposable Cylon bodies that they can just crank out indefinitely, and they spend 2,000 years combing the stars to get to the 12 colonies.
Yeah,
where
they do like it's like a souped up Noah thing.
Yeah. And they retrace their steps over 2,000 years, living just the 5 of them, and then come to the 12 colonies where they decide to team up with the Centurions to form the new group that ends up killing everybody. And anyway, point being that they, while humanoid Cylons, have already gone through this, where the humanoids create the clunky robots kill off the humanoids.
If that's their goal, they then put humans and humanoids on Earth. They get it on with natives. They could still make metal robots later. There's no not only that, but they've erased their collective conscience, or at least it has naturally been erased. So no one remembers that this happened. Therefore, I mean, it seems to me like the easiest way to stop something from happening again is for people to remember about it. Know your history.
You make a compelling point.
Listen, I love Battlestar, but this never made sense to me.
Yeah, well, I think I think they had to tie up a bunch of loose ends at the end, and
because they thought they were going to get canceled around New Caprica, right?
Yeah, I think that they were under threat of getting canceled periodically, right?
Yeah, and then they ended up getting 2 more seasons.
Yeah.
But was it 4 that was split in half? One of the seasons was released in 2 halves.
And then they had an additional 2 made-for-TV movies, Razor and The Plan. Although The Plan does a decent job of explaining. Like, The Plan is really good, by the way. Like, I'm sure you've seen it.
I've seen it, but I don't remember it.
It's all cobble.
Yeah.
So Dean Stockwell's Cylon character. And there's almost like a nascent good Cobble who dies. He's thrown out the airlock at the end. And there's the bad Cobble who's like the main architect of all of this and is in fact misleading his Cylon buddies because he's just wanting to bring mom and dad to the realization that humanity's terrible.
Yeah.
But it's a great one
because he's the only one that remembers all of it, right? He's the first.
He's the first. They allude to a Cylon that was deactivated and never brought back. That like the program, like you get the strong impression Cobble killed him and then scuttled the programming so that he like eliminated the line. They never quite say, but they
it's like a data lore situation.
Yeah. And then that for a while you're like maybe Baltar's that guy because Baltar thinks perhaps he's a Cylon and hopes he is.
Yeah.
Cobble's the first one, and he's the only one who remembers the identity of the Final 5. No one else knows the Final 5. It's sort of part of their collective mythology, but they don't know who it is. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been like, kicking Saul Tigh around so hard on New Caprica.
Yeah.
Favorite characters?
Ooh, I mean, Tigh is my favorite character.
Mine too.
I think he's everyone's, because he's just...
He's a wonderful character and he's got so many character flaws, but he's very loyal. He really does have a very deep sense of loyalty. Yeah,
I also love characters who have their own peculiar sense of code. Even if I don't agree with the code, like I like in films or television series where like this character has his own very specific code, and we know exactly what it is. He's always going to stick to it no matter what. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love Saul Tigh. I love Chief Tyrrell. I love any engineer character, just as a general rule.
Tyrell's interesting because he becomes increasingly misanthropic throughout the series, right?
Yeah, he kind of doesn't know what to do with himself.
Once his wife dies, like he kind of takes a turn for the worst, and then like gets really drunk and is like, I never liked her, or whatever he says, right? He like gets kind of dark, and then turns out his son's not actually his son, and hands him over to the birth dad. Like this is like
oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Because he's like, this is like a 3 or 4 year old kid, and he's like, not my problem.
His wife is murdered, right?
Yeah, she's murdered by Tori. Yeah. The chief of staff, who when she realizes she's a Cylon, his wife, Callie,
she doesn't take it well.
Yeah, Callie realizes it and she tosses her out an airlock. Yeah, and Chief Tyrell, gives his kid a hot dog. The pilot that had an affair with his wife.
Always give your kid to a guy named Hot Dog.
Rule. Yeah, you rule one. And then at the end of the series, they're like, hey, so like, yeah, we're on Earth. What are you going to do? And he's like, I'm just going to wander around Greenland by myself. I never want to see another person again for the rest of my life. Like he's done.
Yeah, he gets pretty depressed.
Yeah, he gets out. Adama finds peace. He's kind of sad because he's
Adama's great, and Edward James Olmos is just so, I don't know, he's got so much gravitas as a performer that when he's playing that character, it's like, even when he's wrong, it's like, yeah, but it's Dad.
Yeah. He's got a lot of gravitas. There's a deep sense of honor rooted to him. I love Laura Roslin. I think she's a wonderful character. It's why I don't like how she's treated in the last season, because I think she's so severely underutilized. Going to be honest with you, I never liked Starbuck. I never come around on her. I always found Starbuck grating.
I don't really like Starbuck or Apollo that much. I never really got that into either of those characters. Yeah. I'm trying to think. So wait, I love, partially because I just think Lucy Lawless is the best. But Lucy Lawless's Cylon character is great.
She does a great job. Yeah. No, she's wonderful. And I think Dean Stockwell knocks it out of the park. I think Cobble is so good. He plays such a like pithy, smug villain.
Yeah.
He does a wonderful job.
It's funny to compare this character to Dean Stockwell in like Quantum Leap.
Yeah, he's kind of like a used car salesman that becomes like your cyber buddy.
Yeah, well, his whole like backstory in Quantum Leap is he is a admiral who is like a boozing ladies' man cigar kind of guy, and is so loyal to Scott Bakula's character, and will take care of him, and is always like the guy you want in a real pinch.
Right. No, I use that metaphor. Like if I really like somebody, I'll tell them like, oh man, I if I were in Quantum Leap, I'd want you to be my Al. Yeah.
You can call him Al.
You can call him Al. Yeah. Young, I think we've solved everything except figuring out the humanoid Cylons on the original Earth. That bit remains a little bit of a mystery. But other than that, I think we've done a good job of parsing the series out, and we'll hopefully convince Tricia Helfer and Ron Moore to hang out with me and explain the human thing.
Maybe they'll just come on to correct things that I've said.
That'd be great. Yeah. So then, thank you for coming on. Pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Do you have any places you want to point people towards? Twitter handles, projects you're working on?
Honestly, what's the point right now?
I like it. You could be a tease. Here's this really funny guy. Not giving you anything.
I'll come back on and have something to promote, when the world is not a disaster.
Yeah, that sounds like a good call.
Yeah.
Every week, myself and Nick Sperduti, my friend and comedy ally, we go to some distant, far-flung, amazing world to perform comedy. And then we report back to you. But we can't because we are socially distancing and the industry is pretty well locked down right now, what with COVID and with quantum COVID. And so we have been trapped in Nick's apartment. And I actually wanted to talk to you, Nick, today because I have learned of a terrifying incident that I need to bring to your attention for the safety and security of the apartment.
Wait a minute. I thought we were going to talk about our Brady Bunch parody that we were trying to make. I thought that's why we were coming on here.
I told you that just to buy us some time.
Oh, boy, what the hell? I got so excited. I even dressed up in my costume.
We can still do the
I
Brady
look
Bunch.
just like Greg. I look just like Greg.
You look uncannily like Greg. I promise after we're done talking about this thing that I need to talk to you about, we will do the Brady Bunch thing.
Okay.
All right. And I get to be Alice.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to establish that. All right, good. So having established that, Nick, earlier today, I was expecting a package from Amazon, not a fleshlight, just something. And I heard the doorbell ring, so I opened the door.
That sounds eerily specific to not. Never mind. Go ahead.
Just let me focus on the thing, right? So I was gonna get this package from Amazon that was, indiscriminate exercise equipment or possibly a book. I don't remember. Anyway, I was gonna get this thing, and the doorbell rang. I opened it. The guy went, "Your package is here," and I signed for it without even looking. So I don't know who it was for. And when I opened it up, it was a book. And that book, Nick, was How to Be an Undercover Cylon for Dummies. A field guide, a manual designed for Cylons to infiltrate human society.
I want to say, first of all, you're just opening people's mail. You're not even. I mean, I know you were looking for a package, but you didn't even look at the front. I mean, come on.
Well, yeah, okay, point taken. Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
That's illegal.
Yes, okay.
That is federal crime.
Right, Nick. Okay, yes, Nick. I apologize, but I think the bigger issue right now that's facing us is that we have proof positive that the apartment has been infiltrated by a Cylon. One of the people we're living with, one of the Wookiees or somebody, is actually a Cylon masquerading as one of our friends.
What if they just love books? What if they're like collecting all of the For Dummies? I mean, I have a few. I like the For Dummies series. XL.
Possibly. But do you remember 2 days ago when we looked in the bathroom and somebody had used lipstick to write "meat sacks are stupid" and "death to all humans" on the mirror? And we couldn't figure that out? Well, I feel like
vaguely
that very specific anti-human sentiment, and the meat sacks thing is like an organic sentiment, right? You combine that with the how to infiltrate human societies as a Cylon for Dummies, or whatever the title was. I hit it. It looks suspiciously like there's a Cylon in our midst.
I mean, it sounds like Wafaro, if I've ever heard.
Maybe. So you're thinking it's one of the Wookiees, who's actually a Cylon.
Wafaro is the only one that I don't know a lot about.
Okay.
He's dyslexic.
Right.
So maybe it wouldn't be him.
But he could be faking it.
Or maybe that makes it more likely to be him.
You like a computer error?
Like a broken Cylon.
Yeah, or he could just be lying about it. That checks out. But if that were the case, when would the real Wolfwaro have been replaced?
Well, you know what? It makes the most sense. We went to the replicant homeworld.
Right.
Of course.
You're right. We did. We went to the
swap.
The replicant homeworld, which is populated
They swapped him
entirely by fembots, and we know they have the technology to replace humans with highly sophisticated and generally really shapely androids. And so, if anybody could have done it, it would have been them. It must have been when we went to the fembot homeworld. They
totally makes sense to me. Case closed.
Wait, hold on. Wait.
Case closed.
Wait, no, Nick, I'm doing the chronology in my head. All that makes sense. That checks out. But the only problem is that we went to the fembot homeworld,
right?
Which again has the capacity to steal humans and replace them with replicants. We went to that planet before we met the Wookiees, so they couldn't have been there with us, including Wolfwaro.
You sure?
Yeah, that was one of our earliest adventures. That was
we at least had the Gungan. So that makes sense. Joe Blob. I knew it. You know what? He was always a little too strange, you know? That makes sense. Okay.
He is strange. I concede that. But he actually came into the storyline, the episode following the Wookiees. So he's actually been here less than the Wookiees have. He definitely wasn't there for the fembot
Feels
homeworld.
longer.
It feels longer. Agreed. But it couldn't have been that. He was there when we went to Westworld, as were the Wookiees, who were adorable, by the way. Remember they were all deputies?
That makes total sense. That was it. Westworld, it must have been one of them must have been swapped on out when we were performing and or committing to being dead in Westworld.
That makes more sense. So the logic there would be that all of us were in Westworld, so any one of us could have been replaced with a replicant.
Nope. It's probably Wolfaro or Joe Blobe.
Probably Wolfaro or Joe Blobe. Okay, that makes sense. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to just watch them like a hawk, buddy, you and I. We got to be suspicious of everyone.
Yeah.
Eyes in the back of your head.
I think we're making this a bigger deal than it has to be, quite frankly. I feel like, just live and let live. That's what I say. What's the big deal? But
I am gonna go ahead and watch a bunch of McCarthy speeches on YouTube to get into this whole Red Scare mindset. And try and get myself just super paranoided up, which I think I can do if I drink enough coffee. Before we go, this is an unrelated note, but I just, once again, Nick, I want to apologize for the other night when I drank a little bit too much and I got confused and opened the door on you and Megan, who were in the midst of conjugal bliss. I apologize for that. That was very awkward.
There was even a sign on the door that said conjugal bliss ongoing.
It's adorable that Megan crocheted a sock that says conjugal bliss that she
that was me. I did.
Oh, you did that? You hang it over the doorknob?
Yes.
Well, anyway, I want to apologize. That was very awkward for everybody involved, not the least of which Joe Blobe, because I initially found it really funny and pointed and started laughing and saying, look what they're doing. Joe Blobe, come look at this. And then Joe Blobe, saw it. He was really embarrassed, and I just apologize. The weird thing about that, Nick, was that your back, your spinal cord was luminescent. Like your back was literally producing light. Like the room, which had no other light sources in it, was very well lit from your spinal cord, which was, again, luminescent. It was very strange.
Back in junior high, we went and played football. And I never played. It wasn't a team sport aspect. It was just I was running away from the field because I didn't want to play. And I tripped and hit my back pretty hard off of an old root, an old tree root that was on the ground. And you know what those are about.
I know them roots. We call them roots where I'm from. Oh,
either way, yeah, sure. And so because of that, I had physical therapy for many a year, and they used to like rub a gel on my back and stuff, and because of that. So that's where it was like gamma, I think, like the Hulk. Okay. Like how the Hulk glows a little sometimes.
Nick, I didn't realize you had a back injury. I'm sorry, buddy. I hope you feel okay.
That's fine.
Do you want me to get you some Advil?
There's an acute scoliosis, and I don't think we need to get into it.
No, absolutely not. Well, I guess we'll just leave it there, buddy. Just until we figure out who the secret Cylon and or replicant is that has infiltrated our merry group, let's just, keep our wits about us and be overly suspicious.
Okay. Heaton, I got to tell you something.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Listen, buddy, this guilt. I got a lot of guilt going right now, and as far as Cylons go, it's AJ-19.
Our protocol droid?
Yeah, exactly.
Our cybernetic mechanical man.
Yes.
Who we know...
It's like a double switch.
We knew from the beginning was literally a robot. He's the secret Cylon. He is a Cylon, which is to say, an android pretending to be a human, pretending to be a robot.
Exactly.
That bastard.
Yeah, son of a bitch.
That son of a bitch. Okay, well, I'm going to go break some plates. Tell him to clean them up.
Well, maybe just, okay, we don't really have any plates left, so if you could maybe just yell at him.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. I'm going to go take a shower, either way.
Okay.
All right.
That works.
Goodbye, buddy.
All right, see you later, kid.
That's the show. Thank you, Andrew Young, for introducing me to Battlestar Galactica these many years ago and joining us today to talk about it. And as always, thanks Nick Sperduti, friend and comedy ally. Until next time, tally-ho!